What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about 3 reasons why anxiety acceptance is hard. And when I'm talking about acceptance, I'm talking about accepting that anxiety is the reason that you have these negative thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, the irrational thoughts, the feelings of like I'm going crazy, right? The brain fog. And then of course I'm talking about the physical symptoms and sensations as well. And accepting that anxiety is actually causing those rather than something like heart disease, right? Or cancer, or a neurological disease, right? So I'm going to cover 3 reasons why, and these are reasons why it was hard for me to accept. So whenever I make videos like this, guys, I'm speaking from experience. That's why you should watch these and trust what I'm saying, because I was somebody that suffered severely from generalized anxiety disorder, health anxiety. I've been very open about that, and panic disorder for 5 long years, and I recovered, right? So if you like videos like that, be sure to subscribe, be a part of the family. And you know what time it is. Smash the like button down below if you're ready to kick anxiety in the butt. And we're going to jump right into this. So the first reason why it was very, very difficult for me to accept that anxiety was causing the first set of symptoms that I was dealing with, which was panic attacks, chest pain, shortness of breath. I had a lot of numbness and tingling, high blood pressure, fast heart rate, palpitations, things like that, was because I had never experienced anything like that before, right? My anxiety in the past had just been butterflies, maybe some nervous energy, having a nervous stomach, feeling a little nauseous, having some worrisome thoughts, right? So my first thought when I had these symptoms for the first time was, this has got to be something worse, right? And of course I made the horrible mistake of jumping on Google after I had these symptoms and saw that I could be having a heart attack at the age of like 19, 20 years old, right? And since my anxiety had gotten to that level where I was experiencing these symptoms, obviously I was a negative thinker, so guess what? I assumed that Google was right, and I developed heart anxiety and struggled with that part of my health anxiety for the next 2.5 years. So my first problem was I'd never experienced these symptoms before, and I think we've all been here, right? Like I've had anxiety, or I've been a nervous person my entire life, and I talked to so many people on coaching calls and they've told me the same thing, like, but I have never experienced this before, right? So that's where it begins to be very, very difficult to accept that anxiety is causing this stuff, because a lot of us that deal with panic disorder, health anxiety, have a lot of symptoms. We've dealt with a little bit of anxiety on and off for a lot of our lives, right? We're just a naturally anxious person, but it never manifested in this way. So that's the first reason. We've never experienced symptoms this severe, this painful. And if you've never had like really bad chest pain before, whenever that hits, it's scary. It's scary. And these symptoms, when they get to this level, they actually hurt. When you have muscle tension, chest pain, some of you are dealing with severe tension headaches and migraines, and you can pretty much feel pain in any part of your body with anxiety. It's scary, especially if you've never dealt with that before. So our first assumption is like something is wrong with me physically. I'm dying, I have a disease, I have cancer, something is wrong, I'm sick. And that's where acceptance becomes difficult. The next reason it's hard to accept anxiety is because if you've had it for a while, it eventually starts to happen on autopilot. It's happening all the time. In the beginning, maybe you were triggered by certain things, and for me, that's kind of how it started. I was triggered by this or that, and then I would get symptoms in those situations. That continues, right? If you're not managing your anxiety, but something else starts to happen. These symptoms start to happen on autopilot, even when you're not consciously anxious. You know, and I've talked about this on the channel before, but it's such a crucial thing to accept that anxiety and your subconscious can give you these symptoms, these physical symptoms, even when you're having a great day where you're not being triggered, right? You're not under a lot of stress at the moment. So this just shows that your anxiety is starting to advance. You're getting symptoms when you're at a barbecue. You're getting panic attacks randomly when you're driving, whenever you're not usually anxious in the vehicle. You're hanging out with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife. You're watching a movie. You're just eating dinner, enjoying your food, and out of nowhere, your chest starts to hurt or that headache starts to creep up. And the reason that this makes things scary is because you're like, I'm not even anxious. I shouldn't be dealing with symptoms. See, we only think that we're going to have anxiety symptoms, well, when we're anxious. The subconscious starts to dish these out on autopilot. This is where symptoms start to become more chronic, and that made it extremely hard for me to accept that this was anxiety. I would go to the doctor, I'd go get checked out, I'd get the heart test, the EKG, my blood work, all this stuff, and stress test, the echo, and then I'd come back home and I'd be like, oh, thank God, you know, I'm healthy. They told me I was fine. And then I'm sitting on the couch enjoying myself, watching TV, and then my chest starts to hurt again. So then I'm like, oh my God, they missed something. This is why I can't accept that this is anxiety. I'm not even anxious. This is a perfect afternoon. This is a perfect day. I just got great news. And like I said, you could be dealing with any of those other scenarios that give you pleasure and joy, and then your symptoms can show up in those moments. Trust me, it can happen. And the next thing, guys, we feel like we are taking a risk when we go all in on acceptance, right? Because we're trying to go all in. We're trying to remove all doubt that something else is causing what we're dealing with. Because honestly, in reality, I feel like that's the only way to beat your anxiety. You have to believe that it's anxiety, because that takes a huge amount of fear away whenever you deal with the symptoms. Sure, they're still going to be uncomfortable. Sure, you don't want them to happen in public. Sure, there's probably going to be some embarrassment and, you know, some other things involved with it. But whenever you finally believe and you're going all in on acceptance that anxiety is what's causing it and not some disease that's killing you, it becomes possible to recover, a lot more possible. So in my opinion, you do have to eventually go all in on acceptance. I'm not going to sit here and tell you when to do that or what. You have to make that decision for yourself. But we believe that we're taking a risk. If I go all in acceptance, maybe there's this tiny chance that I didn't get enough opinions, or maybe I'm being misdiagnosed. That's a hard pill to swallow, and I'm not going to sugarcoat for you guys, but there is a little bit of truth there. I mean, we've heard isolated stories. They're not super common, but sometimes people get misdiagnosed, and that's one of the hardest things to accept, right? To move forward with acceptance. We technically are taking a tiny risk whenever we decide to go all in acceptance. So ways to make this better for you and to drop the likelihood of being misdiagnosed is, towards the beginning, get all the testing for the area of the body that you're concerned about, right? So if you're worried about the heart, try to get a referral to a specialist, you know, get the blood work, get the EKG, but eventually whenever you're able to take a stress test and they can look at your heart structurally, for instance, that's going to be some good evidence that your heart is healthy. When all those things check out, you know, I'm not trying to play doctor here. I'm just saying a specialist will tell you this as well. Try to see a specialist if possible and get all the testing. Same for your digestive system, the ENT, you know, if that comes down to a CAT scan or a full body MRI, which is the mag daddy of them all, to see if anything's going on, then do what you got to do. The next step would be to get a second opinion, right? You go through all this testing and everything like that. You're still not convinced that this is anxiety, right? Because we've all been there. We've gotten the testing and then the symptoms are still there because we don't understand the other things that we have to do and that our fear and our focus is keeping the symptoms there. Get a second opinion. Go see another doctor, right? And get some testing done. I don't want you to drag this out over years like I did. I spent 2.5 years doing this. I want you to spend just a few months possibly doing this if it's going to help you with your acceptance. But as far as when you cut off the external reassurance of getting testing and doctors, you are going to have to make that decision for you, right? Because I'm not your doctor. I'm not looking at your results. You have to make that decision. But it's a hard pill to swallow that we are technically taking a tiny risk whenever we go all in on acceptance. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching to this point. If you made it this far, please go down below and we'll just keep it simple today. Comment in all caps in the comment section. Acceptance is hard. Acceptance is hard, right? I don't want to sugarcoat. It is hard. It is hard. But once you finally take that leap of faith and you move forward with acceptance, recovery becomes possible. You're less afraid of the symptoms that you're dealing with. And it's definitely easier to manage your anxiety and try to inch your way towards recovery. There's still a lot of other things that go into it, which is why I offer my course and I offer coaching. I'm going to put links to that stuff down below in the description in the first pinned comment. If you haven't tried my course, Elite Anxiety Bootcamp, it's going to give you all the necessary steps that you need to take to get to recovery. Remember, like I said, I recovered from this. Super hard, right? You got to have a mindset for it. You got to change your perspective on a lot of things. You got to have a routine. You got to have a schedule. You got to do exposure. You got to change your life. It's a lifestyle. If you're interested in that, check out my course. I'll put that down below. And I have coaching services as well. If you're interested in that, I'll send you my info. My email for that's down below. Online therapy is down below. Try out therapy. If you've never tried it out, it can make a big difference, especially if you're trying to get a diagnosis. Try that out. It makes it very convenient because you can do it on the phone, the laptop, you know, the PC, the tablet, any of those good things, right? Technology is amazing. Let's see, what else? My socials are down there. Subscribe if you haven't. Like this video if you got value. And until next time, guys, keep fighting. I love you all.